Test, test, test.
Yeah, you could, well, or you could just, or you could stand and do whatever you
You're
want.
okay if I stand?
Yeah, you could stand,
Okay,
yeah,
good.
you
You
can
can
stand.
stand.
I'd rather,
We'll put
I
it
would
where you
prefer
want
to
and
stand.
Yeah.
you can test.
and then
You just want to,
how's that turn off?
yeah. So just press it.
All right. Well, good afternoon and welcome to October's caucus meeting. Thank you very much for all those who are tuning in, and thank you for all those in attendance. Just a couple of announcements prior to our meeting. The board did hold an executive session prior, as well as we also held our first policy committee meeting. So if anybody's interested, we have open policy committee meetings that will occur at 5:30 prior to every caucus meeting. Policies that we reviewed this time and will continue to have discussion over is policy 218.3, which is the discipline of students convicted or adjudicated delinquent of sexual assault, and 805.2, which is school security personnel. And again, that was our first policy committee meeting, and we'll have another one in November prior to the start of caucus. So thank you very much to everybody for tuning in. I'm going to hand over an announcement to Ms. Snyder, who's going to go over our October 10th, kind of a broad overview of our exciting professional learning day that's coming up. Ms. Snyder?
Oh, thanks, Dr. Fox. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to briefly take a moment and share with you our October 10th Professional Learning Day agenda. You each have a copy in front of you to take a look at. We're really excited to be able to provide just a variety of trainings and activities on this day. We are going to have 2 different autism awareness trainings separated by grade band here in the high school LGI. That is going to be provided by Vista Autism Services. We are also going to be providing virtual seizure training for all our staff and school personnel provided through the Epilepsy Foundation. Really excited just to be able to give buildings some time to work on building level activities and have meetings. I know we have the principals already working on schedules for that hour of time during the morning. And then we also are giving our staff, our teachers, planning and preparation time based on need by building. We are also going to be providing Gizmos experience training for select science teachers, our secondary science teachers. And I will be meeting with our school counselors for the afternoon on the 10th as well. We have a variety of activities to work on. So really excited about the 10th. Just a lot of different activities and ideas have come forth, and it's always hard to decide what you're going to focus on for these days because we have so few of them during the school year. But we're really excited to get this going for the 10th.
I have 2 questions.
Sure.
Virtual seizure training, can you go into that a little bit more?
Absolutely. So it's about a 75-minute training provided by the Epilepsy Foundation. So teachers and staff, this is something they do. It's a free resource provided by the Epilepsy Foundation to us online, and our staff goes in and can create a profile and actually work their way through this training. They can stop and save their work as they move through, and then they get a certificate of completion that we're able to give them Act 48 hours for at the end of the training. So it does a really nice job of just providing that overview, and then we also have a separate training that our school nurses can go through. There's different ones that they provide by your role. So.
And I guess the second isn't a question, it's a comment, is I'm so glad you're doing something special for the counselors. Different one
Absolutely.
day. And pass this on. One of the most valuable days I ever had as in service here as a counselor is one day they let us go to another school and just hang out in the counseling department just to see what they did.
Oh, that's
and get
exciting
some
to
ideas.
have that
Yeah.
networking and communication.
Yeah, that was a
So,
great idea. So.
Yeah, we're really excited to have that afternoon to work, especially on our Chapter 339 plan and working on revising that and getting ready for a board presentation for that in a few months. So, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Snyder, and thank you to our principals and as well as to the entire team, as well as Mrs. Matash for all of your help in putting together October 10th. And we're excited for that day of learning together as well. Looking at the agenda in terms of resignations, leaves, transfers, and employment, under personnel, unfortunately, we have a resignation of Heather Welsh from the position of custodian, level 2. She's been an outstanding employee with us, and she's an outstanding person. She's going down the road to the capital area intermediate unit, and we wish Heather all of the best. She's been just a blessing to be around and an incredible person and extremely hardworking. Under employment, we have two. We have Jeff Fisher, as math teacher. And Mr. Fisher is already started. He's hit the ground running. And some of you might remember, Mr. Fisher was here prior with us. So we welcome him back. We welcome him back to Susquenita Middle School and engaging our students in mathematics. And the second is Callis Wexler as a full-year substitute. So she's agreed to sign on with us and continue for the full year. Callis does an amazing job and is an amazing educator and completely knows how to motivate students. So we're excited that she's going to continue the full year at the high school with us for a learning support teacher. We have a leave of absence, Eugene Peters, Maintenance 2 for FMLA leave, and the awarding of tenure for Sarah Dardis at the elementary school. We have a 90-day successful evaluation for Elizabeth Krieger, so congratulations to her, and congratulations to Sandra Dardis as well at the elementary school. Mrs. Boaz has agreed to be the mentor for Elizabeth Noss, our new high school nurse. So we're excited for Mrs. Boaz to continue to share her knowledge. And we're excited for Mrs. Noss to start with us. And she's hit the ground running over the course of the last, I believe it's been a week now. Monday was the first day. Thank you. Substitute professional staff, Ms. Andrea Fisher, who's currently one of our paraprofessionals, has agreed also to be a substitute professional staff, and she's going to join us on a rotating basis. Athletic coaches and volunteers, we're getting into the winter agreements in season already, so we have several here. Boys basketball, Jade Wilson, head coach, JV coach Brandon Steckley, 8th grade coach Aaron Washington, 7th grade coach Adam Timchek, girls basketball head coach Blaine Leonard, JV coach Steve Collins, wrestling head coach Jim Yinger, wrestling assistant coach Al McCollum, middle school head coach Corey Fleischer, middle school assistant coach Jeff Quigley, and we have a placeholder for elementary school head coach. Volunteers, boys basketball Frank Forer, Mr. Patrick Quigley, girls basketball, Desiree Prinz, and basketball, Mark Britcher, volunteer. Wrestling volunteer, Justin Heffinger, Eric Hurt, and wrestling volunteer, Steve Shermer. And the following, just to allow us to continue to commit employment as appropriate before the November 22nd board meeting when appropriate. That is resignations, leave, transfers, and employment. Moving on to agenda items. We have informational item that's located on number 14, which is, we'll have an informational item on sick bank report. We have some disposition of items from the high school, not working and in poor condition, which is a CNC mill, drafting tables, a table saw that we possibly may have for resale, and some possible sale of some donated older cameras that are no longer really in a working order, but could be used possibly for parts. One of the agenda items that's important as we continue is our reports from our JOC representative, Dr. Rubish, with a lot happening, of course, with our partners at Cumberland Perry Career and Technical Center. And we look forward to those continual updates as things are moving along at CPCTC. All right, any questions on agenda items? Hearing none, I'm going to turn it over now to Mr. Bard with a review of finances.
Thank you, Dr. Fox. If you guys would turn to your reports that I provided on the board summary. On September 1st, we paid our bonds, our debt service payment for the year. So that has fully exhausted in the expense accounts down at the 5100s. So as you noticed, a lot of those are fully exhausted. There will be a small interest payment that we have to make in March as our debt services are paid in September and March, but the principal payment, the $2.4 million was paid to Wilmington Trust on September 1st, so that was taken care of and paid out. A couple of the things that are on the expenses report side of things that I want to explain a little bit in knowledge and just so you guys understand. In the 2600s, in the 300 object code, where it says purchased and professional technical services area, where it shows that we're a little overexpended in that area. That's not necessarily because we're overspending at this point. That's where we're putting a lot of our expenses for things that we're using grant money for, but it is because we have to put the money there and we don't budget for the grant expenditure. So that's why it's looking like it's overexpended. So when you see that money as overexpended by, for an example, we have spent we have spent $492,000 already, and we've only budgeted $221,000. A lot of that is because of the HB McClure control project and the like, and that is why that is expended in that particular category. When it looks up in the 2300s in the support services for admin, we are a little overexpended in the 300s for support services as well. But when you look at the overall, that is just also a reclassification of expenses for recoding, and that was something that we're still working on cleaning up some account codes from a couple of years ago. And when you look at the overall in the 2300s, we're just moving expenses around, and some of the stuff has been put in the 300s that were put into other classifications, other codes. So when you look at the overall, the $1.2 million, and only 32% expended, that's about what on pace we should be. So I don't want you to be a little over concerned that we're still working on reclassification and recoding, and these things will work themselves out as we go through the years overall. Overall, there's been nothing that has been overly concerning. And on the revenue side of things, we are collecting taxes at about a 93 to 93.5% clip, which is a very strong collection rate. Thank you to our taxpayers for that. There is nothing that has been out of the ordinary or anything of that nature in terms of that. And so there's really nothing out of the ordinary coming across on that sense. So I want to give you guys a minute or two to review those reports, and if you guys have any questions to ask me about those reports in comparison to where we were in 21 and in September of 21 through this date. And I also want to touch base when you guys get the Treasurer's report. One of our purchases of the Treasury notes will become mature and mature out on October 22nd, and we will be reinvesting that again for another 3 to 6 months. The interest rates have kind of steadied, even though the Federal Reserve Bank did increase interest rates by another 75 basis points, which is 0.75%. A lot of that is actually, that did not trickle down to the Treasury notes yet, so we'll see where the market is in a couple of weeks, but that will be reinvested in terms of, and so we can continue to capitalize on where the interest rates are to get extra income back into our coffers that way, to try to help us with try to stave off any tax increases that have to come about, or to stave off any tax increases and give us some extra revenue into our coffers. Other things that are going on in the business world, I'd like to keep in the business office side of things and the operation side of things. We are still very short of staff members at the food service level. So if anybody wants to apply for food service, we need 5 people we're 3 people short at the middle school and 2 people short at the high school. Nutrition Inc. is, and so they're looking for staff members. You can find the information on our website under the cafeteria. Our rowers, they're short of bus drivers as well. You could drive bus in the morning, come work in the food service during the midday, and then drive bus in the afternoon, and you can basically fulfill your day as well. Also, I would like to note that we are extremely short of custodial help as well. I'm sure Mr. Howe will touch on that during his report as well next week. But we are extremely short of custodians. We're about, I think, 8 people short of custodial help and cleaning help. And so we are desperately in need of custodial help as well. Please reach out to us in the district office for the application, and we will get you on as quickly as possible for that. Our staff is doing a phenomenal job keeping the buildings as clean and as sanitized as possible, giving giving our short staff as we are. But we are, they're doing everything they possibly can in that side of the operational side of things. I also want to commend them for how well they've kept up the grounds. It looks like a phenomenal job that Mr. Howell has done and his staff. I also want to congratulate the technology department on becoming an Apple Distinguished High School. It's one thing for the investment of investing money into buying Apple products, and it's another thing to see that investment bear fruit. It's funny you bear fruit with the Apple products, but bear fruit in such a way where you become a distinguished school in that regard. And I think this is something that I will be talking about when I go to PASBO conferences and stuff of that nature, where you actually do make that investment in technology, and the teachers and the staff members actually use it and are doing such great things with that technology in our classrooms with our students. And I think that is just a great thing. So I want to commend Mrs. Matosh and all the teachers in the high school and all the teachers across the district overall for their commitment to using the Apple products and helping make our students better. And finally, last but not least, I want to thank all the parents for their patience over the first month of school. There were some hiccups with the first month of school with transportation, and they have been patient and wonderful as always. And I'd like to thank especially all of our teachers at the elementary school for being as kind and as patient as they have been with our bus schedules. We've worked out a lot of the kinks thanks to everybody working together from the high school to middle school and elementary school, getting everything taken care of and working together to get the timing kinks out. But everybody kind of working together as a team to figure out all the timing kinks and stuff like that. So I'd like to thank everybody in the community for being patient with that. So with all that, Dr. Fox, I believe that is it for me today.
Thank you, Mr. Bard, and a great segue into our next presentation as I get the honor and privilege of introducing Mr. Craig Funk, who's going to introduce our outstanding announcement that we have. Mr. Funk?
Thank you. It's a pleasure for me to be here this evening with Mr. Shepler, who is one of the key members at the high school that worked to put together our Apple Distinguished Schools application. All the teachers, it was a team effort throughout the school, but we had a team of like 4 key teachers that worked with the administration, Mrs. Matosh, to complete the application over several months. It was definitely not a checkbox application, and there were quite a few schools. Well, so I won't get into that, Mr. Shepler. I won't steal that from you. But it was quite a effort by the high school and everyone supporting us, and students who were involved also, to submit the application, and then we're thrilled to receive the recognition. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Shepler to walk you through some of the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Funk. And yeah, I just wanted to say it was really a team effort this year. We've done it a few times, and it was different this year because we did have a pretty supportive team. And again, all of this comes down to really what the teachers are doing in the classroom. But I do want to give a shout out to Mr. Funk and Mr. Fortelka, Ms. Matosh, Ms. Snyder, and then at the high school level, Mr. Brokos and Ms. Falzerano and myself took on a lot of the application stuff, but it was really kind of just showcasing what our teachers are doing at the high school. So if you want to turn to the back here, I just have a quick presentation for you, but part of this is what I put together for the staff. We were sort of accommodated, or we were commended for it 2 weeks ago at a faculty meeting, and we kind of talked about this, but obviously we congratulated the high school for achieving this. Essentially, this distinction is we're one of 689 schools worldwide that has this, one of 265 schools in the United States, and one of 21 schools in Pennsylvania. And this is not a district award, this is a school award, so there's, 500 school districts in Pennsylvania, but that's not how many schools there are. So this is quite the achievement. To add to that achievement, Most of you know this if you're new to the board here, to the community, but we've not done this just once, twice, or 3 times, but this is our 4th consecutive time as an Apple Distinguished School. We don't have facts or figures on how often that happens, but I can tell you that it's not all the time. This past application process was pretty competitive, and not everybody that submitted applications were awarded them. So we're continuing to do what it takes to be named Apple Distinguished. And so real quick, just for you guys to kind of see what that looked like, if you want, and I'm not going to go over all of this right now, but if you want to scan that QR code, you're more than welcome to. That'll take you to the website that we're hosting that showcases all of the achievements of this. And I'll just show you briefly what that, sorry if it took it away, I'll go back to it. But basically, if you go through this website, and I think this presentation is linked to the district website too for that QR code. And I think this website's linked directly there as well. But you can just see that it breaks down and it looks at our vision as a school and what we were looking to do with the iPads. It looks at our learning. And all of these videos are 1-minute videos. I won't go into showing them all right now, but you're more than welcome to see. These are some of the neat things that teachers are doing with the iPads and with technology at the high school. And I really encourage you to take a look at them. There are some really neat things that a lot of teachers are doing. And then finally, the last part of this builds around the idea of success and what we're looking at next. And so there's a little video there. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but I do want to show you, let me go back here real quick. And again, you can just kind of visit this site and you can see all of the different accomplishments and things like that we're doing through there. Let me go back to the presentation real quick, maybe. Just to cover like 2 or 3 things. So again, that's the QR code if you want to scan that. I'll wait till I see you hold your phones up and take it away again. All right. Literally, I was watching Mrs. Singley to make sure. All right, but real quick, I do want to show this. You might. This was the vision video we put together. The kids helped with this, and it turned out really cool. So you might recognize some celebrities in this. Oh no, maybe. Nope, maybe not. You'll have to go back, I guess. I don't know why it won't play. Let me go back to this real quick. Again, it won't take me long for you to see this video. It was pretty cool because the kids helped with the editing of it, and some local celebs. Sorry, this is a montage. That's really bad. Hold on. Are you saying? All right, well, I know, I don't.
If you do it right there and not go full screen, it might work. Or go to YouTube. Go to YouTube. You have to
Sometimes Mr. Funk needs to be full screen. No,
get right there.
Student and educational community through innovative application extending beyond.
It's not, well, it's just not, it's not letting me connect. I know, right? Well.
Just don't try it not full screen.
Okay. Maybe? It says it's playing. So you may have to view the video on your own. But it does a good job showcasing what our vision was and what we're looking at. And very quickly, I just want to show you one other thing here. See if it lets me back on here with my keynote. All right. So one more thing that I did want to show you guys. So part of our vision was defining what we were looking at, and so that came down to doing some surveys and collecting some data, and we did that with teachers at the high school. And we were looking for priorities from teachers and what they were looking for. So that came into looking at things like teachers were looking for creating lessons that engage students in real world things that they could do and ways that technology could be used with that. We also were trying to make learning personalized, which is the whole point of these devices. And then providing students the opportunity to kind of create products that demonstrate their knowledge, which is something that we're focusing on as we continue to work on this. Just 2 slides on some numbers. This was obviously the COVID-19 was kind of a disruptor to education, but these iPads really did make a difference. We kept up with student achievement and engagement, high levels of critical thinking activities. And this is based on teacher and student results collected from before the pandemic to after the pandemic. You can see that frequency of critical thinking in the classroom with use of technology stayed almost the same, if not rose in some areas throughout the pandemic. So that was kind of nice to see that these iPads helped us through that. Also, we did a survey, and in the results that we collected, we're seeing an increase in the use. 72% of students told us that they collaborated with technology on a daily, or sorry, on a, where's that one at? 72% of them on a sort of between months and weekly and daily basis. But what we really saw was that 87% of students are creating their own products with technology, which is something that we're really proud of here in the district, and that's something that the iPads are letting us do, to be able to actually create learning experiences and then for students to be creating things. So as we continue, as we look at, and this was part of what the application asked us to do, was to kind of figure out where we're going next, because if we're gonna apply for this 3 years from now, that process and kind of journey starts now. And it's expanding our efforts. We're continuing to build programs here with Apple, like our Vanguard program, which brings in teachers to make more experts and leaders within the Apple program, getting learning coaches at the different buildings. And part of that goes to the board support of the innovative coach that were hired for this school year as the co-contract things. Also, one of the big things that we're focused on over the next 3 years is trying to expand what we do with the community. So trying to reach the community with what we're doing, our technology, reaching out, and we have some ideas in the works, and we're doing some things right now. But a personalized creation of technology projects to help make the school and community relationship closer. So we're really excited about that. Really, we couldn't have done it without the board support, and we really do thank you as a high school. Without the administrator support, you know, this is something that's a big decision. Like Peter said, I know it's a big investment, and I think this hopefully shows that it is paying off. We're doing some really cool things with it. A side note, the district is providing us with these decals to celebrate our 4-time status. So this sticker is a sticker that I think we're going to be getting at some point. So we're excited about that as well. Any questions?
First of all, comment. Congratulations. I think this is outstanding. The second thing, you mentioned about ideas to reach the community. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so we're looking for ways to use our technology and our content to work with the community. So we've got students that are designing art for our, Black Hawk Academy. We're getting ready to work with a podcast that's going to bring in things, so technology that can reach out to the community. We've got a lot of students that are really capable of doing a lot of cool things. For instance, in one of my classes, we're doing infographics for the local townships and boroughs and stuff like that that we're going to hopefully have that can be shared. So things that we can create with our Apple technology that our community can use. And we're always looking for ideas. We've got teachers that know students that are great at certain things. And so, those ideas can be, you can reach out to building admin, to administrators, stuff like that, to put those ideas onto us.
Sounds good. Congratulations. Good job.
Thanks.
I'd just like to comment. I was very against us, what I called going to bed with Apple when we first started this years ago. And I still feel strongly how I felt then. But you all have just done such an amazing job with what we have. I couldn't be happier, with everything that we have seen showcased in what you're all doing. I mean, you took the resources and just ran with it. And I know some of that is due to support, a lot of it, but a lot of it is due to just your own initiation, yours and other staff members just taking the initiative to plunge forward. So I'm very thankful and grateful.
I would just like to echo my congratulations as well, but one of the things that really struck me was the data on how many schools reach this, because I'll be honest with you, the first time I saw that we were an Apple Distinguished School, I'm thinking, oh, no crap, we bought $300,000 worth of Apple products, why not make us an Apple Distinguished School? And it's not that, right? So I think that, because it sounds like, well, if you pay for it, they will, and I wonder if there's a way that we can get that information out that, I don't know what that looks like, but even when it says, if we're an Apple Distinguished School or we put it on our moniker, is there some way we can say what that really represents in numbers? Just something.
Yeah. I know we do have, I mean, it's hard. I know we give a description of what Apple says it represents, and we do have that attached to it, but yeah, definitely getting that word out there, I think is.
I just think that number really is powerful. When you're right, it's not just one in so many school districts. It's in schools, and that's pretty, even if it's just the Pennsylvania number alone, I think it's pretty powerful. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. When you go to our website, I know that they've done a great job of putting this information in there as well as this presentation, which really speaks volumes to the small amount of schools that get recognition for this. And again, I don't want to diminish the fact that this is our first. Every time is more of a challenge. So each time you do it, it's just like anything in a classroom, the rigor becomes greater and greater and greater. So I don't want to diminish that it's one time, it's 4 times. Now we're going one for the thumb. And I think that's extremely important. And one thing that remains, there's a couple things that remain a constant. The dedication of our teachers to provide creativity for our students, to look at how our students can demonstrate their learning in different ways, and to exercise and to release those 4 C's of communication, collaboration, communication, and critical thinking. Those are imperative. Regardless of a device, those are imperative. So the utilization of this device allows us to unleash that in a little bit different format to allow those students to demonstrate that throughout it, and not just have particular silos that occur. So to have this as a widespread throughout the high school. So I think that's outstanding. And I also want to recognize one constant that's also a person that's been here for those 4 times, and that's Mrs. Christine Matash. She's been instrumental of not just looking at a device, but focusing on the education, the teaching and learning aspect of it, and how do we innovate within that classroom. So it stops becoming just about a product, but about the purpose and about teaching and learning. So thank you for all you do. And congratulations to our teachers. Let's continue to do those awesome things within the classroom, to create and to bring out and to problem solve, problem identify, and bring the community within our school as well. So I think that's a great challenge for all of us as we continue.
I just have a question. Does Apple award these to middle schools and elementary schools, and are we looking at that for other schools?
Yes, Apple does.
Okay.
Apple, it can be a designation by school. So, and we are exploring, again, we're in that infancy stages of what that will look like. I know under the leadership of both of our elementary principal and our middle school principal, they are exploring, and we're starting those concepts of what that will look like as well. The exercise itself of taking a look at the application process is a valuable resource in and of itself too, to really focus on what we want that vision to look like, to collect artifacts of learning, which is fun to celebrate and to see and to show and to share those snapshots within time of what's happening within the classrooms. I think that's valuable in and of itself, regardless of if we submit that or not. The fun is in the journey and the discussions. So yeah, we're excited to continue that and to look at it from all levels. There can't be an Apple Distinguished School District. It is a designation by school. Yep, so we are continuing to look at that. We believe we're on our way. we have work to do and we'll continue to do it, but we are optimistic and believe we're pretty close to being ready.
I just had one other comment, just to circle back to the very first topic on the agenda, the Professional Learning Day. I just want to say thank you to Ms. Snyder, because one of my frustrations was it seemed that all of our professional development was something that Apple was bringing us. And so I'm glad that our teachers have become proficient in Apple, and many of them have gone on and taught other districts and done training on their own. But I'm also glad to see we're diversifying our professional development and able to do professional development in other areas and still maintain the status.
So I actually have a question. So the community involvement, so a lot of the examples you gave were in regards to graphic design. Are you also looking for involvement to be able to use, technology, engineering? What types of community involvement are you looking at to be able to use what the students have learned and how they can integrate what they've learned in the classroom, as well as, the technology and mirror and match their interests and the community's needs?
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of, I think, why that's our next step, right? So we're at that point where we think that we, as a school, we've got these things figured out. But I don't know if I don't know if we actually completely have that defined yet, like what we're looking for. We just know that we want to do more in partnership with the community. And so ideas and those types of things are more than welcome, because that's our next step. When we apply for this in 3 years, we want to say this was our vision for those last 3 years, and this is how we've done it. These are the partnerships we've made. This is how we've used our technology to help with and to bring people in and to learn and to do those things. So yeah, I guess it's okay to say we don't 100% know what that looks like yet, but that's what our focus is. So any ideas as we go and stuff are more than welcomed, obviously.
Again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the work that you've done. Thank you for the work that Mrs. Falzerano has done, Mr. Brokos, the entire development team, our entire teaching staff. I would say even throughout the district, because again, as we continue, we are continuing to share and innovate, move people around to be able to share different ideas, all important for us as a district. Thank you again to Mrs. Matosh, Mrs. Snyder, and Mr. Funk and Mr. Fotelka for their leadership, and now onboarding Mr. Page to continue that as well. So I think it deserves certainly a round of applause for everybody to be Apple Distinguished School. And this is a nice tie-in for our next presentation, because when we look at Apple Distinguished Schools and looking at vision of teaching and learning, bringing in our community, partnering that and marrying that with our portrait work we're doing right now, and I'm excited about with Portrait of a Graduate, and now looking at enrollment and feasibility, these are not just things that are out there. All of these connect well together and partner well together to make one movement overall when we look at providing opportunities for our students. So, Mr. Bard?
Thank you. One thing I did not mention during my report is we're entering the first phase of our feasibility study that the board engaged in with Crabtree-Rohrbach, and tonight we have Anthony Colstock, who is a principal at Crabtree-Rohrbach, who will brief the board and the community on the first phase of the feasibility study. Once again, I will introduce Mr. Colstock in a second, but I'd like to remind everyone that the feasibility study is just in its infancy stages. And as part of the feasibility study, they're going to be studying, and I'm not going to steal Mr. Colstock's thunder, but they're not going to be studying the opportunity to build any new buildings. The board has not committed itself to any option, but it's just going to be looking at all different phases of our district, from enrollment to buildings to educational programming, and this is just the infancy part of it. So, Mr. Colstock, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm going to pass out this presentation and appreciate your time. Tonight, I wanted to talk to you just to introduce our firm, introduce myself, talk to you about the process for this district-wide feasibility study, talk to you a little bit about the schedule, because we will be coming back and providing you updates. As Mr. Bard said, we started meeting with administration about 4 weeks ago, and we're going to continue to meet on a bi-weekly basis. And then what we'll do is we'll start to get into board updates on a monthly basis. So just to look at the agenda, want to give you a little bit of our firm overview, talk a little bit about ourselves, and then talk about the purpose of the study. Why are you looking at embarking on this study? How can it help improve your facilities, your educational program, and then also look at the enrollment as well. We'll talk about some of the study requirements, and then talk about the district vision and what are the contents of the study, and I'll go over the schedule a little bit. So this is our team from Crabtree Rohrbaugh that's going to be working on this study. I am a principal of the firm and a registered architect. I've been with the firm 20 years. This is my 20th anniversary. And coincidentally enough, when I started at Crabtree Rohrbaugh, the renovation projects at the middle school, at the high school, at the elementary school, those were in construction. And we also have several staff members that worked on those projects that are still with the firm. So that I can recall as a young architect looking at those drawings and using those as a learning tool, especially the drawings for the high school. We use those as a basis of design for a lot of projects in the early and mid-2000s. Leah Shiley is another member of our team. She is our Director of Client Relations. Her role is, once we potentially complete the study, and then if you were to maybe move into a public hearing or some type of community meeting that you wanted to share the contents of the study outside of school board meetings, she would be a part of that and talk with the administration on certain ideas of how to present that information. We also have Larry Lovato, another principal with the firm. He's going to be looking at the deficiencies of the schools as far as the building systems and certain finishes, or if it meets code, and where the buildings can be upgraded. And he'll work with Scott's team when he walks through the building. We're also going to have some consultants, some engineers are going to be part of the team as well. And we want them to walk through the building and listen to Scott and his team on what are the age of some of these building systems. And then we're going to put a report together from that, and Larry will present that information to you. And then the fourth and last member is Dr. Fred Witham. Fred is our Director of Educational Planning. He is a former superintendent with Cumberland Valley School District. He's going to be looking at the projected enrollment. So we already have the information from the Department of Education, but Fred will look at his own enrollment projections using historical data from the population of the district and how it relates to the district and the county. Okay, so just to tell you again a little bit about our company, we have office. Our main office is located in Mechanicsburg, just right off of 15 as you pass the Turnpike exit. We also have offices in West Virginia, Virginia, and Maryland. We have about 75 employees in all those offices. In our 35-plus year history, we have designed over $4 billion worth of construction in the Mid-Atlantic region, as well as on a national level as well. If anybody's been to a Cabela's, we've done Cabela's stores all over the country. But we do focus on educational design, and about 80% of our work, actually over 80% of our work, is focused on either higher education or K-12 architecture. And then our corporate philosophy is we want to provide a client-oriented approach, meaning that we really want to hear from the users. We want to engage with the stakeholders, whether it's the administration, the faculty, the students, and the community, and have you be part of the process of putting this study together. But then if you were to turn this into a project, continue that relationship and have you engaged in that process of a building design. So these are a couple of bullet points about our expertise in educational design. The one that we're very proud of is the last one. Since 1997, the Department of Education has put together what they call a Report 30. And what this does is, for that calendar year, it tracks what are the lowest cost design schools in new construction in the state of Pennsylvania. And numerous times, we have had either the lowest cost per square foot school in the state, sometimes the first and the second. And this is a testament for our cost-effective design. And it kind of goes back to that client-oriented approach, corporate philosophy, because we understand that we're dealing with taxpayer dollars, and we really want to be cost-effective with the design. And as far as your vision, hear from you as well on what you envision that facility or what that design looks like. So just to show you just some of the work and some of the districts that we've worked with or we're currently working with in Cumberland County, Dauphin County, Adams County. We work all over central Pennsylvania. We have a lot of work also in York and Lancaster, but we also work in the Philly area and in the Pittsburgh area as well. So we've done multiple projects with Mechanicsburg Area School District. This is one of their elementary schools that has just recently undergone an additions and renovation. And then this is South Middleton School District in Bowling Springs. This is an additions and renovations project at Iron Forge Elementary School. And some of you may have driven by these schools. Some of you may even work within these districts. So just to give you an idea that if you see some of these schools, these are schools that we have designed. We're working with Cumberland Valley School District. If you're driving down 81 and you see Winding Creek Elementary School or Mountain View Middle School, those are our projects. This is Winding Creek Elementary School. We're also getting ready to do a couple more projects with Cumberland Valley with their middle school and an existing elementary school. Central Dauphin School District, this is Mountain View Elementary. And then Cumberland Perry Area Career and Tech Center, this was their health occupations project that was completed last year, and we're also working with the CTC and putting together additions and renovations for their advanced manufacturing and a couple of other programs. And then Bermudian Springs School District, we had the pleasure of working with Dr. Fox at their new middle school. So the purpose of the study, so this is the why. So why are you embarking on putting together a study? So there's a couple of, about 6 points that I want to make. So with the study, this is going to help you with your short and long-term planning. So a good example might be if we note some existing building deficiencies. And maybe there are certain building systems that we know what the life cycle is, that 5, 10 years, something can be replaced. However, if it's something that is more of an immediate need that would cause some type of disruption to the delivery of education, that's something that you want to address in the short term right away. We want you to implement your educational vision within the study. We also want you to plan for the projected enrollment. And it's looking at the enrollment now, but then also looking at the enrollment 5, 10 years into the future, potentially planning for 20 years into the future. So we want to understand if your buildings are overcrowded or if they're underutilized. We also want to look at potential capital improvement projects for the future. So if you don't move forward with a comprehensive project, we can still put an outline together to say, these are some of the deficiencies of the building. These systems need to be replaced within 5 years, within 10 years, within 15 years, that this will help give you a framework of those improvements and those upgrades over that course of time. And we really want this to help you make your decisions. It's almost a decision-making guide. And then the last but not least is, in the event that PlanCon provides reimbursement to districts, it's been quite some time since they have provided any type of reimbursement for projects. But in the event that PlanCon would come back online, we want you to have a study that meets all the Department of Education requirements, that you could submit that and get your project into the queue. So because of that, we'll use the Department of Education's study requirements as an outline for your study. So they have a checklist. So there's 6 items, and 5 of these are going to be the future topics for board presentations. So the first one is just your geographical and population overview, pretty basic information, but from this is where we're going to start to look at the projected enrollment from that data. We also want to understand your educational program. One of the future meetings that we're going to have with the administration is we're going to meet with the building principals, and we want to understand how you're currently using the spaces. And from that information, we're going to be able to establish a building capacity. We'll have future talks with the administration and the building principals to find out, are there certain areas where you are deficient? What are some areas where you feel that the architecture isn't helping serve the delivery of the curriculum? Then the next one, as I mentioned, is the future enrollment. We're going to look at the Department of Education projected enrollment, and then our own that Dr. Witham will put together. Thank you. And then this analysis of looking at your projected enrollment and your current enrollment and comparing it to the building capacity. So as I mentioned before, are your buildings overcrowded? Are they underutilized? Are they Goldilocks? Are they just right? And so this is going to help you plan for the future as far as whether you need additional square footage or whether you have room maybe to consolidate square footage. And then again, looking at the existing conditions of your facilities and then a cost to upgrade them. And then we'll put analysis of options together as well. So the next portion of this presentation, we'll talk a little bit about the guiding principles. And the guiding principles, these are very broad statements from the district on what are your core values. So that when, whoops, go back one more. So that when we are looking at the options, we want to make sure that the options that we are putting together align with your core values and your educational vision. So this is just a sample from another district, but what this district wanted to do was talk about how their buildings are going to work from an operations standpoint, how they're going to serve the education of the students, and then also how are they serving the community. This is something that we've been working with the administration with, that we've provided them with some other samples. And then this will be something that they'll bring back to you to discuss so that you are adopting these guiding principles. They will be part of the study. And then when we look at options, we can say, option one, well, this maybe doesn't meet all of our guiding principles. However, option two is checking more of the boxes. So that's helping you create a decision-making guide. I don't know if you, Dr. Fox or Peter, if you wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that we had discussed with.
No, I appreciated the sample, but I think, again, when we looked, things don't just happen in isolation. They're not in vacuum. So when we talk about learning experiences for students, when we talked about the vision for learning already with our Apple distinguished criteria that have been met, the vision for learning that was already in existence there, looking at our work that we're doing in our Portrait of a Graduate, plus some of the work that we'll be discussing, we'll build our guiding principles together based upon that information, as well as currently our mission and vision statement, which is still active and still alive as part of our comprehensive plan, and kind of truncate those together to look at our guiding principles, and that becomes our operational guidelines as we move forward. But we have not fully discussed all of those operating guiding principles yet, but we will.
So with the contents of the study, I mentioned the educational program overview. This is when we're going to meet with the building principals to understand the current use of spaces. And then also if there's a future vision that maybe there's a particular program that you want to move to in a different direction. Or maybe there's a particular program that you don't feel has adequate space within the existing building currently. So we want to hear from the principals on understanding your educational program and how it can be improved. We're going to look at the grade structure. With your district, it's pretty straightforward. All the schools are on one campus. You have an elementary, you have a middle school, you have a high school. It's not like you have multiple elementaries or intermediates throughout the district. This is pretty straightforward. And as I mentioned, we're going to identify some of the deficiencies in the educational program. And then we also want to look at, if you discuss with the principals, if you need more potentially collaboration space and more future-focused environments. Maybe you're looking to get away from the cells and bells of the classrooms and looking to provide more flexible space for students and breakout areas. So that's one of the discussions that we'll be having with the administration and the building principals. So we'll also be doing a comparison of the projected enrollment with the Department of Education and then Crabtree-Robaugh. And then one of the things that we'll ask you is which projected enrollment you would like us to utilize with the planning? Are we looking at Crabtree Rural Laws? Are we looking at the Department of Education? And then whatever that enrollment is, that we're going to follow, that's how we're going to plan for the study. Yep.
I just have a quick question. I presume these are just example numbers,
Those
right?
are just-
Yeah.
yes.
So do you find in other studies that there is a big divergence between PDE's projection and yours?
Not a huge difference.
Okay.
Yep. And then this is the analysis of comparing your building capacity to your current enrollment and then your future enrollment. So this graph over on the right-hand side, one of the things it's very important to understand is that the building capacity is how many seats are within the building. So there's X amount of seats. However, we know that it's extremely unlikely that at every period of the day, you're going to be at 100% of students in those seats. If you are, then the buildings are going to be overcrowded. We want to talk about to the districts and to the building principals, is there a certain percentage that you feel you're more comfortable operating at? So is it typically at a high school, it may be at an 80 or an 85% utilization rate, and it really helps with scheduling and moving students through the building. You're going to find at elementary schools you can have a higher utilization rate because elementary kids are staying in their seat most of the day with the exception of going to the specials. However, at the middle school and the high school level, you need a little bit more of a buffer. When we're planning for the future, we also want to make sure that we're including the projected enrollment so that you also have that buffer over the next 5, 10, 20 years, so that if you were to do some type of renovation, that you're not at 90% utilization right away. We want to make sure that you have that buffer and you have room to grow within the school.
And again, this data means nothing, right? It's just made up, just for
Yes,
everyone who's watching.
This is a boilerplate presentation.
Yeah.
that could be applied to
Yeah, because I'm thinking there's no way that, yeah, there's no way that's true for the elementary school.
It's just for pictorial representation only.
So I'm sitting here saying that I want to hear from everybody and part of the process, but I didn't do
Well, their
the work.
reactions, I was gonna say, because I was watching, there was 2 reactions over there, and I was like, yeah, I think these are just boilerplate numbers. I was gonna send you a text to let you know, because I saw you're going like, no, that's not right, that's not right. I was like, no, these are just presentation numbers. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We have tons of room at the elementary school for more kids.
I just have another quick question about that. I presume when you look then at the high school, for instance, it may be dictated by the actual class itself, what you might want to have in terms of numbers and in a specific class subject, right? Or no, do you not get to that minutia?
As far as the curriculum or as far as
As far as the
students that-
capacity, like, so when you're talking about being this building capacity and enrollment,
Yeah.
you know, like you said, in the elementary school, that's pretty easy to sort of, not easy to figure out, but your students are usually staying in one seat for the most part for the day. But in the high school, they may not be. Would you be looking at that down to that microscopic level of an actual class? Like, so let's just say the physics class may not want to have the same capacity as civics and economics.
That's a good question. So we can do it 2 ways. We can follow the Department of Education's guidelines for a capacity per classroom. So for example, a general classroom, typically the Department of Education is recommending a maximum of, or an average of 25 students per classroom. A science lab may be different, where the Department of Education is only recommending 20 students. However, it's not uncommon for districts to say that they have a threshold that is different.
Okay.
And sometimes a lot of times we'll see it in the primary level, that you may get 20, 22, 23 students that the district is used to. So when we're building the capacity calculations, we're going to review this with the administration and adopt a number that they feel comfortable with.
Okay, thanks.
So another part of the study that I mentioned is we're going to be doing an existing facility conditions assessment where Crabtree Rurball and our consultants are going to do evaluations of the buildings, that we're going to walk those with the facilities department. We're going to make recommendations. We want their input as well on how to upgrade your facilities, and then we'll put cost estimate together for those upgrades. And then once we've gathered all of this information, so we have the guiding principles, the projected enrollment, the needs of the facilities, then we're going to start putting options together. And we'll bring those to you, present those options, build them according to your vision, and put cost estimates together for those as well. One of the things that we'll try to do is be extremely focused with the options. We don't want you to have paralysis by analysis. And then, depending on what those options are, we would recommend that you then reach out to the community, have a community presentation to say, these are the options that we've looked at based upon this study, prior to you approving or voting if you want to move forward on any type of project. So we think that the study should probably be done by next April. So this is just a schedule as to what we're going to be looking at each month. So I know I went over a lot of information, but we want to try to give you nuggets of information throughout this process. We won't have an update in November, but we're going to come back in December with the projected enrollment comparisons. And then in January, we're going to have that analysis of the building capacity compared to the projected enrollment. February, we'll be looking at the existing conditions of the facilities and where they're deficient, what are our recommendations, and then in March, we would start to bring you the options. And then potentially in April, if you say, you know what, we like that option, but could you maybe look at another option or take this option off of the table, and then we would present in that following month. So are there any questions? I'm sorry to scare this group over here.
Thank you, Mr. Colstock. I also want to add that our financial advisor will be involved at the later stages. Brad Remig, you guys have met him when you did the field turf project right before I started. Brad and I have an existing relationship also. I worked with him at Weatherly area, so I know him very well. And I've reached out to him for another project that Anthony's working on with the Cumberland Voltech as well, or Career Center as well. So he's working on that project as well. So they're working on that project as well. So, but yeah, thank you very much for coming. If there's any questions that arise from this, we will forward them along to you. Once again, like I said, we're in the infancy stages. There's no commitment to any projects or anything of that nature. We're just studying to see where we're at. The last one was done about 20 years ago, and Crabtree was very much involved in it. And so the public knows the cost of the study was, what, $1,500. The cost of the project was $1,500 and is refundable to the district. If we do adopt a project, it gets refunded through the fee structure of the project, and then we move forward from there. If not, then it's just $1,500 a fee. So I just want to let the public know and the board members know if there's any questions about that. So it's really a comprehensive study that gives us a good footprint as to where we are, so that during our budget season, we can plan and know exactly where we are from not only a physical plan standpoint, but from an enrollment standpoint as well. So we look forward to working with you, Anthony. Thank you very much.
Same
Thank
here.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have
Yes.
before you go, I just have a quick comment, and I don't know if this is partly from Crabtree or partly from our administration, but I like it. Under your guiding principles, I like the idea of the civic part of that core value that would allow the school to be part of the greater community and being able to utilize by the greater community. Because I do believe that if we do move forward into any kind of a building project, which does involves our taxpayers outside of just school attending people. I like having that component. I think it's really important. So thank you for that.
Dr. Fox and I will be working on that with the board as a community in the next week or so, I believe so, Dr. Fox, is that correct? Dr. Fox is leading that. He's much more creative than I am. I have about the creativity of this table. So Dr. Fox is leading that discussion with that, so.
I just like thinking
Yeah.
of the buildings in general, like how they might be utilized.
I think, so the
by
process,
just,
the process of the feasibility study is we have to give Crabtree, Rohrbach, and Mr. Kolstock, you'll be able to tell us this, we have to give you guys the guiding principles. So
Yeah.
the board has to set the guiding principles out so that they know how to formulate so we need to actually get the guiding principles to them as they begin to do the enrollment. The enrollment's really the base piece of it.
Yeah.
And then as they study the buildings and whatnot. So once we give them the guiding principles, so that we need to really formulate and stabilize the guiding principle piece first.
I appreciate the fact that you're looking into
Yeah.
having that be part of the
Yeah.
guiding principles, so.
And in
thank you.
reality, if you look at the community, I've been really impressed with how this school really is the basis of this entire community and how it all feeds into this
Yep.
area. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, we appreciate all of the work so far and excited to continue with our feasibility and enrollment study with Crabtree and Rohrbach. Moving on, we're going to talk a little bit about, it's that time. Never too early to start talking about academic calendar review for the 23-24 school year. You know, before you know it, we will be ready to look at adopting a calendar and sharing that calendar with our friends at Cumberland Perry Career and Tech Center, since they need those in order to be able to plan their academic calendar. So we wanted to certainly take a look at what our calendar would be. So in your packet of information, you'll see, I think it's embedded the last page, and just a draft calendar that we certainly put together, and I appreciate all of the work of Dee Bolsba on this project as well. So just going over a couple of calendar highlights. We look at making the first tentative school day, August 22nd of 2023, and the last tentative school day, and again, if I mess up any of these dates, years especially, it's tough, right? The last tentative school day being May 24th of 2024, that being a half day for students. Graduation, we are looking at May 23rd of 2024, in our stadium at that particular time.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So it feels, and I'm not sure, but it feels like for the last 2 years, including this year, last year, we start about a week earlier than all the other schools in the area, and we end about a week earlier than the other schools in the area. And I don't understand why we would continue to do that. So I don't know why we are doing that or what the purpose of that is. And while I'm thinking, since you brought up commencement, at some point I want us to discuss whether or not the forum will be open again, whether or not we want to return there for our graduation, but that's another
And before you answer that,
conversation.
I kind of have a question dovetailing on that too. I think this is one of those years where it seems that Memorial Day is very early. So now we're pushing our end of the school year even earlier into May, which while I know that some people, there's two different schools of thought of getting out before Memorial Day or not. I'm struggling with it ending so early and infringing on all of that May stuff, because now with the leap year, it's now 2 days even earlier than last year because Memorial Day is earlier. You know, it's a very early Memorial Day being on this 27th.
You're talking 2020, you're talking not this calendar, but the one that was
The one coming
approved
up.
last year.
Yes, but looking into next year now, Memorial Day is even earlier.
Oh, you're not talking about this year, you're talking about this one.
This one
This
that
one.
he's doing right now, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It's even becoming earlier because everything's earlier because of the leap year and the Memorial Day holiday is earlier. So now we're even going further into May, which I'm struggling with that. I'm not sure that I like that.
I know in the past, the career and technical schools calendar is kind of important, and it does feel like we even started, early and went and ended early, even based on their calendar. I'm just not sure when we made that decision or why.
That historically, I'm not sure. I think looking at August, there is potential. I mean, you drive the calendar. I'm providing recommendations to you, and you certainly drive when that official first day could be. And you have that potential of sliding it down another day. But there are pros and cons to everything. If we do slide back a week, we're going a week later. Oftentimes, and I don't have all of the data to share. I can, but I think sometimes you start looking into that summer, it does become difficult to compete with summer. I sometimes believe that Memorial Day is that unofficial first day of summer. Is that true? I think I've heard it called that. I don't know if that's true or not. But again, there are competing factors. So I've just provided a draft. If you want to see another version, I will take your recommendations on what that version can be. There's certainly a reason why we're doing it now in October at a caucus, and we can take multiple looks at anything you want to.
Okay, I have a comment, and first of all, you was asked about when the forum is going to open again. I was down to use the state library last week, and they told me that they are moving back into the forum. He said, well, we're scheduled to go back in January, as if he had some doubts about that. Now, whether that means the auditorium portion of the forum will be ready by then or not, I don't know. And I agree. I think this last year, I felt that we were cramming everything in at the high school at the end, trying to get everything in. It was hard to do, and it just, May 23rd, really? I mean, that just seems way too early to me.
I think the other thing to take into consideration is for those in the elementary school who need to look at summer childcare. Most summer childcares don't start until sometime in June. So you're potentially leaving community members and family members with not just a week, but potentially 2 weeks that they have to try to figure out an alternate situation to get childcare. And I think that that's more of a, you have to take that into consideration as far as the burden on the families.
Yeah, and I think it has an impact too on employment for teenagers who have to quit their summer job or tell their employer like August, 22nd that they're done, when the employer probably would want them for a little longer. I mean, I'm not sure, but maybe we can get maybe we can start by getting an idea of what the Career Technical School Center is looking at, or.
I can tell
So
you.
what they do, I'm sorry, is they will collect all of our academic calendars, and then they try to do their best to marry those. It's difficult when you have multiples, so they try, but nobody's ever going to be 100% on.
From a historical perspective, we just started going to ending before Memorial Day about 3 years ago. We always ended the week after Memorial Day. It's been longer than that. It's not really been, because it was not like that before I got on the board. Right, right. It's only been 2 or 3 years. Yeah, it's not been that long.
Only 2, maybe.
I think the first year I was on the board was the first year we went to Memorial Day, before Memorial Day. No, I didn't, because it was before I was on the board. The calendar was approved before I was on the board. I did not propose it.
I think part of it might have been, and I don't remember, but it might have been a reaction to some snowstorm where we didn't want the kids to go all of June. But now that we have 5 flexible instruction days, and on top of that, you have 3 built-in snow days, makeup days, I think worrying about ending earlier in case we have a huge snowstorm, we have to go later, is not, that may have been, this calendar may have been a gut reaction to that, I don't know.
So I think what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is go back to work on another draft that looks at moving, and I'll take some direction right now as to what you want, because I can build multiple versions.
before you get down that road, personally, I would rather see a survey of the parents, because everybody that I talk to likes being done before Memorial Day. So I have not heard that feedback from other people. So personally, I would rather hear what the parents want to do.
Not super in favor of doing a survey. Like I think, because you're gonna get only the people that are gonna respond to it, and I think that's just me. I don't think a survey is necessary.
I
We
think
can just have the parents that are sitting on the board decide what we're going to do. I'm
Well, I
not
think
sure I
there's-
agree with that either.
Then anybody can run for board, not knock yourself out. I mean, that's.
I think there's some value to finding out what parents think, because every parent I talked to was not happy that we ended so early. And a lot of it actually stemmed from childcare, which is what Mrs. Walborn brought up.
And with all respect to the people that are on the board, this next schedule is going to account for only one more year of my child's education. So I'm not advocating for one way or the other. I'm saying in terms of my own kid. What I'm saying is that to what everybody else's point is, every other school district is finishing that next year, and there were other valid points brought up in terms of childcare, in terms of employment. There's a lot of things that play into this other than just, I like being done before Memorial Day.
Yeah, us quitting school before Memorial Day came into effect that we decided we didn't need a week off for Easter anymore. And that's really what happened when we changed that, was all we did was we eliminated the Easter break, and it made us be done before Memorial Day.
I think, Bill, you're right. It was a response to the Keystone exams, actually, I believe, and the PSSAs. Because there was the theory that once those tests were over, the school year was over. Is there validity? Is there validity to that still?
Easter, I think, that like we have, because those typical, we go out whenever it felt like a week before they back and jump to the testing. So I'd like doing away with those, that block of time, just because of the, just that,
The nice thing about having time after those Keystone exams at the high school is then the teachers have opportunities to teach really good content that is not tested, that they would like to be teaching but can't because they have to take some test.
Can I just offer another couple of points on this one as you're looking to revamp? Just some thoughts I had. The half-day of the 22nd, is that just an early dismissal, or is that being, I'm sorry, of December? Is that being an early dismissal? Is that for, will teachers be here? Is that an in-service thing, or is that just an early dismissal?
And that is that's a 2-hour.
I'm wondering if, because the 22nd isn't right before Christmas Eve this year, in terms of a travel day, if we want to do a half-day thing, would it be more beneficial to do it before the big travel day of Thanksgiving, which is Wednesday? A half-day on that Tuesday instead of the 22nd? That's just a thought, because I think, I like the idea of a half-day before, if it's the 23rd, because then Christmas Eve is the next day. But since Christmas Eve is actually on Sunday this year, you already have Saturday, the 23rd, built in. Do we need to do a half-day on Friday? Would it be better to use it somewhere else?
And only a 2-hour early dismissal?
I'm
Not
sorry,
necessar-
2-hour early,
That's
yeah.
okay. And we certainly could look at that. You have that flexibility. And we could look at it November 21st.
It's just a
if-
thought.
if- Sure. Sure. I think those strategically are to try to get our buses and get our kids home without being caught within the lines of traffic, because we know sometimes coming in and around this area, it can get congested relatively quickly. And we want our buses to be able to get the kids home within that time. So that's part of the thinking process behind that. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, that's a good point to look at as well, too. Honestly, breaking up the March monotony, that's certainly not a bad thing also. And knowing full well that one or two weather events could change that, or a few weather events, sorry, could change that. We do.
I'll point out one other.
How many snow makeup days have we used in the last 3 years? Now, I know we had COVID too, but.
No, I do want to talk about that because I certainly would love to offer and use a snow day when we get a good snow for our kids to use a good snow and then have that makeup day be done later on, whether that be a FID day or some component. But yeah, if we get a good weather maker, a good snowfall, it would be wonderful to allow kids to have that opportunity to be kids in the snow.
And I'll probably get in trouble for saying this, but if you need to play with any days, and I don't think you do, November 27th, which is historically the first day of deer season, is now the third day of deer season, because now the first day of deer season is Saturday, and that's also a Sunday hunting. So when we have off Monday, actually it's the third day of deer season. So that's not as critical as it was once upon a time. What's that? I'm just saying.
And
I
I appreciate that.
And
Absolutely.
again, I'm going to throw out another one. The last several years, we've been able to be off the January 2nd. So people that are away on January 1st are not coming back the next day. I'm wondering if we can, as you're massaging everything, this whole schedule, since it is October, I'm wondering if we could look at the possibility of having the 2nd be off.
Okay, I'll throw my 2 cents in here.
Yes.
The Tuesday before Thanksgiving, what were we talking about, a half day or 2 hour?
I don't necessarily think we need to have that. I was just saying that if there was some reason to have it, I didn't think there was necessarily do it on the 22nd of December when the actual holiday isn't until 2 days later.
Okay, because
I thought if you wanted to move it to somewhere else, you could.
I think if you give them a half day on Tuesday before Thanksgiving, it's 1.5 days that week. Why bother showing up at all that week? Yeah. The other day is I always liked having Friday before Labor Day off. It was kind of a nice little vacation after you started. Yeah.
Well,
But-
alternatively, if we do move into after the birthday, we used to have the Friday before. Instead of the Friday before.
I just looked at 3 other school districts around us, one of them being East Pennsboro. They started school on the 22nd of August this year, and so did the other 3. One started on the 23rd, sorry. But the difference is they're taking a week off for Easter, and that's the difference in our schedule. Because this year, they only finished 4 days after us. It just happens to be like June 1st or something like that.
Right. What I'm saying is then if you guys don't want to still start in the 22nd and give a week off in April, that's fine. I'm saying I don't like the idea of ending so early in May. So if you don't want to give off a week in April, which like Mr. Funk said is not really necessary or something like that, then start a little bit later in August. Allow these kids to have a full summer of working or whatever that they're not able to do.
And again, this is certainly your academic calendar. What I'm hearing is go back to the drawing board, readjust the beginning of August to make it look a little different. I will keep this draft as well, so we'll have 2. But again, I think Mr. Colstock said it best. We don't want to do analysis by paralysis. So what I'll do is take a look at the 2 different versions and share those with you at the next caucus meeting. And then from there, you can give me what direction you want in terms of where to go from there.
I'm not sure. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the concern is we'd rather, that people may not want to end so early in May. So maybe it's not a matter of starting so early in August, like I pointed out, but maybe it's just, give a week off in April so they could go further in May. Ending early in May seems to really cause a lot of problems with everything that's going on in the school district in May and with childcare.
Well, and starting so early in August, for my family, is problematic.
Yeah. And I'm just wondering if we are gonna push later in May, the more, and it seems like we're good with the 5 days off around Easter, not a full week off for spring break. Shift it later in August so that you provide a full summer off, because you're going later in May and into June, go a little bit later in August.
We can certainly take a look at that as well.
It'd be nice to hear from community members. I don't know the best way to do that, but it would really be nice to get.
They're invited to come to the next board.
Right. I mean, they can hear about this board meeting or whatever, but I don't know. It would just be nice to hear.
I would just find it, I know we're talking about childcare. I would just find it hard to believe that those programs are still running the last week of August. Because all the other schools are back in and the college kids went to school 2 weeks before that. So I would just have a problem thinking that those things are actually still running.
A lot of the, I mean, I know you pointed out a couple of
They're not
West Shore
running
schools, but a
anymore?
lot of the East Shore schools don't go back to school until the 28th of August. They went back a week after us this year. Central Dolphins, Susquenita Township, they all went the 28th-ish week.
I understand that, but you had to cross the river to figure that out. I was just going about what the schools around us are doing.
Well, okay, crossing the river, forget it.
All right, so I will go back and we'll take a look at the calendar a little bit, make some adjustments, see where we're at. I'll have some conversations as well. The team does a great job of providing me some input and some guidance, and I appreciate that. And that's why we certainly start this process early, to be able to work flow and to make any needed adjustments based on your feedback. And it should be a continual process, because again, it is our academic calendar taking into effect a lot of different factors into play as we continually look at what best serves the delivery model for our students. And I do like the aspect of being able to talk with some parents. So we'll be able to kind of leverage some aspects from our community members and our principals and our administrators to see if we can get some qualitative feedback. Not necessarily that quantitative, but qualitative as to what works. We're never going to be able to really find what works for every single individual, but really what works in terms of best model as well. And we also will talk to some teachers as well and get some feedback from our educators as well, who are extremely important when it comes into play too for this particular calendar. And then we'll see where we are at, and I will work on bringing a new model back to you in November's caucus. Or models. It's actually quite neat when you think about it in terms of building a calendar. Because while the days are the days, and there's not much we can do, there is a lot we can do in terms of how and what. And there's always that potential of trying and then reflecting and seeing what that does in comparison to what it doesn't. And while time is a constant, what we do with that time is really up to us. And I think that's exciting as well. So there's a lot of different factors that could come into play with that. But it is a good conversation, and I think that's the important aspect of it, is everybody brings multitude of different perspectives, which I think is all valued and important when it comes time to providing this final version that, again, is a work in progress until it's finally decided upon and we feel comfortable with what that model is. And then that allows us to set the academic calendars inside of PIMS, et cetera. So important for us as we move forward. So I want to transition a little bit into an exciting program that was brought to our attention. And it was brought to our attention, and I'm going to give full disclosure and credit to Mrs. Annie Fisher from the elementary school. She brought this program to our attention, myself, Dr. Herman, Mr. Quigley, Mr. Funk, and brought this to our attention that she discovered in the summer. She met a person who knew a person who really began this process of talking about what this is. And what this is unified sports. Unified sports is extremely exciting because it is about students who may be eligible for Special Olympics and students who are in the regular education environment working together on a team. And the team in this particular area would be bocce. Bocce is played throughout. We've seen bocce and bocce courts throughout different parks and different communities. And it is actually a competitive sport. You'll see a handout that's provided at your location that details more than I'll probably be able to go over with you. But let's take a look at it. What is unified sports? Unified sports are a fully inclusive program which uses sports and youth leadership to successfully facilitate social inclusion and improve school climate. It's important to note that there are more than 350 partner schools and 46 counties in Pennsylvania that have a unified sports program. This is an after-school Pennsylvania Department of Education and PIAA endorsed sport, and it would be for grades 9 through 12. This is the fun part. Students come together and compete against other high schools, both locally and regionally. They begin their season on November 18th, 2022. You'll see in this program information, the picture at the top right-hand corner is of the PIAA basketball state championship. Before the PIAA state championship basketball game, students compete in the unified sports bocce competition for the state championship on the Giant Center floor. And then at halftime, they're awarded the PIAA state championship trophy and medals. The bottom shows the breakdown of what a court looks like, and the green and the red bocce balls. These are composite gel balls that are used. This would be an after-school program. Practices are minimum twice per week. The season is about 10 to 11 weeks. There's typically 3 competitions, perhaps more depending on the season. Special Olympics of Pennsylvania provides uniforms, and teams can participate in the regional championship with chances to advance to the PIAA state championship. So looking at supports and what we might be able to get in terms of supporting a program such as this, we would receive technical support for training for our coaches and officials. They would provide, Special Olympics of Pennsylvania would provide $1,000 for a coaching stipend. They would provide the bocce balls, the bocce court, or the barriers around it. They would provide the uniforms, the polo shirts for athletes, and they would provide some scheduling assistance, but we wouldn't need that because we have an outstanding athletic director as well. What we provide, what we would provide would be transportation to away competitions. We would host and conduct one interscholastic regular season competition event, and we would engage staff and students to support inclusive youth and leadership and whole school engagement events. So next steps, and what is bocce? Bocce is a game that is centered on skill and strategy. You roll the small ball first, called the Polano, yes, thank you. And then the larger ball to see who is closest. Points are awarded based upon that. There's a requirement for proportionality, so there'd be 3 special education eligible students and 3 students without a disability that formulate this team. There could be upwards to 4 and 4 or 8, and then if you get more students signed up, you could have 2 teams, which would be a black and an orange team that could compete. But you have to designate your roster of who competes where. What they would ask for, they being the Special Olympics of Pennsylvania, would ask for a signed MOU. We would then recruit a coach, and I think we have one that would be interested, Mrs. Fisher. We would look for an assistant coach. We would recruit players. Players would have to have physicals and paperwork. They would be conducted with eligibility, and we would begin an inaugural season on November 18th, 2022. So I'm here to answer questions you may have on unified bocce the best I can. I'm here to see if you're willing to allow us to enter into an MOU.
First of all, are the teams separated by gender, or do boys and girls play together? Do we know?
Boys and girls play together.
Okay. Do we know if we have students who are interested in doing this?
Not at this time.
Okay, I think that'd be a good question. And lastly, given that this, maybe this is a question for you, Mr. Quigley, lastly, do we know if the private schools are recruiting people for this already?
I don't know about that one, but you never know. Although we were talking yesterday, when we looked at our list of eligible identified students, I think there's 3 or 4 right there that would jump at the chance to do it. And talking with local athletic directors that already do this, Upper Dauphin and Halifax, West Perry is bringing it in this year, and Mifflin County has it, and our thoughts are that they would group the 5 of us into like a conference. And the way they've done it in the past, and this is really growing, it's growing very quickly. I mean, Palmyra does. I mean, there's a whole bunch of mid-Penn schools that do it. And they were saying that like last year, basically, it's more of a round robin. It's like a home and home within your conference. So, minimally, we would host one and travel, but in all likelihood, it'd be closer to like 8 contests, which isn't a thing. And the November 18th date is the first day of winter athletics for PIAA. So they're not going to start playing the 18th, but that's when practices would start. And we've already talked about locations for practices and games, and we'll have to schedule them around junior high basketball and things like that. Traditionally, or I guess I shouldn't say traditionally, but for the most part, the local schools start at 3 or 3:15, and they're over by 5:30, 5:45. I mean, you run a scoreboard, you have announcers, you do the whole thing. So, and as the one, if you haven't played, and I've never played, but my one friend basically says it's like curling without the ice, is the way one easy way to try to figure out the game.
CV started a program last year, and I've gone to a bocce ball contest at Unified Sports. It is amazing. It's like, I don't know, it's like you want to cry. You want to cry at every event, just to see how it brings not just the students on the court, but all the student body together. And that's one thing I love about our district, our kids have always, I feel, supported each other. It's just a really amazing opportunity. I would totally support this. I think it's phenomenal. The benefits are school-wide, the benefits are just really, really amazing.
I was a part of, when I was at Crestwood, my previous district, we were the first district to bring in unified track and field. The first district in Luzerne County. My previous superintendent was also the first superintendent to bring it in Lackawanna County. So, and I could attest to what Dr. Jones is saying. It is a phenomenal opportunity to bring it there, and I could testify that it's also a minimal financial commitment to the district as a whole for what you guys get to see, which is a phenomenal community and student body outreach, which is unbelievable with that.
So back to your point, which is a great point, Dr. Rubish, is do we have the students that would be willing to participate? And before we started to promote or build that anticipation or that excitement, we certainly wanted to present here and get an MOU ready to go and approved so we can begin that process of recruiting. And recruiting students really comes down to having those powerful conversations with students, and we think that that's really where the most benefits will come.
Can we get a hold of a video or something that shows what the game is and maybe play it over the announcements in the morning, give people an idea what's going on?
Actually, our phys ed teachers already played in gym class.
Okay.
So the kids have an idea. And as far as recruiting regular ed students, I mean, through our varsity club, Mrs. Kistner and I think would not have a hard time getting, because you cannot be playing a winter sport. So we have enough kids that are athletes there, and you don't have to be an athlete. I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, you can just join if you want to do that. That's not a problem either. So I don't think we'd have a problem finding regular ed students. I don't think we'd have a problem finding identified students.
Mr. Quigley, why is it that you couldn't play a winter sport and do it too?
That's one of their
requirements.
That's one of their rules.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because if you can play 3 in a season.
Well, yeah, that's
play
I
3 in a
didn't know if
season.
it was a PI,
Yeah.
but it's
No,
one of the.
No, that's one of their rules.
Okay, got it. Okay. Yep. Okay, thanks.
I could, from what I understand is, from what I understand, Ms. Singley, it's to encourage more participation in the school setting. That's why they don't want any other, from what I understand, from what I was told by the gentleman. This is not for this presentation, but when I was doing it in another place, another time, they wanted to encourage more people to participate. So that's what it was.
I know in one school I worked, the middle school teachers used to play bocce in the halls after the students left at the end of the day, just for fun. So if anyone has bocce balls, you could play in the lobby during the cafeteria, or whatever, just to let kids see what it is. It's a lot of fun. It's kind of like croquet, but you're not using a mallet. You're rolling a ball and you're trying to get closer to the white ball or whatever. But it's cool.
So if you're okay, I will add to next Tuesday's board agenda an MOU for approval, and then we will begin that process of trying to recruit some students. Well, thank you very much for that and allowing. And oops, I'm sorry, I cut myself off. That must be my cue.
That's no problem. That's not a problem, I don't think.
Thank you very much. Are there any final discussion items before we conclude October's caucus? All right, everybody. Have a great evening. Thank you.